Hello and welcome for the love of food. Today we're going to be making pizza dough. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to get our yeast going. So we're going to get that started. We're going to put our yeast into the water and let that start to bubble and fizz a little bit. That will take about 10 minutes. So we're going to get that process started. All right, we've got 2.5 cups exactly of warm water. It should not be hot water. It just needs to be warm. So you want to feel it probably about the temperature of a baby's bottle. Remember testing out your child's bottle to make sure it isn't too warm for them. That would be the likely temperature. All right, next we want to get in our sugar. We have 2 teaspoons of sugar. Sugar helps activate the yeast. I'm going to stir the sugar just to kind of get it moving around that water. Sugar mixed in, and here's our yeast. This is 1 packet, 25 or 0.25 ounces of yeast. It smells so good just pouring it in the water. All right, so here's our yeast. You can see it got all foamy looking. I just give you a little side view here too. It's milky and foamy looking. What we want to do is we want to get our yeast into our mixing bowl. We're going to be adding in our salt, our olive oil, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and we're going to start with 2 cups of flour, and then we're going to get our dough hook onto our mixer and start mixing our dough. All right, want to make sure that you're locked in, your bowl's in there tight, and we're going to mix on slow because we don't want the flour going everywhere, right? Continue to add our flour to our dough a cup at a time, and then mix again. We can turn it up to the 2nd speed this time. As we go, we can scrape down the sides of the bowl. All right, see how our flour is kind of still gluey and it's not really a fully formed ball? That means I need the rest of my flour. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in now. And this will be the last turn. All right, so even though we've added the full 6 cups of flour, it still needs a little more flour because this dough looks like it's kind of runny still, and it should be a consistency where it's like more of a ball. So I'm going to just give a few tablespoons of it at a time in, and then we're going to see if this comes together. A lot of things can affect dough. Today it's really humid, so maybe that has something to do with it. Sometimes it's the age of the flour. It can have so many different reasons to do what it needs to do, and this is why working with dough can be a little bit tricky. It is more science, but you need to be flexible enough to be able to work with dough. All right, so here we're running the mixer, and you see how it's grabbing the dough, or the dough is grabbing the sides of the bowl and pulling in even those little bits that used to be stuck to the bowl. This is becoming the consistency that we want. Next step in the process is to get our bowl prepared, and we're going to get some olive oil into a bowl. This is the bowl that we're going to let our dough rise in. So I'm going to take this bowl and just make sure that I've got plenty of olive oil all around it, using our hands. All right, at this point, unplug your KitchenAid. Do not touch this dough hook while you've got it plugged in. As my husband will say, the dough hook is unforgiving. It will break your fingers. All right, I'm going to pull all my dough off the hook. And I get as much of it as I can. And I'm going to remove the bowl. So that now we're just working with the dough and my bowl. All right, I've got it out of there. See how it's like one big nice ball. And what I'm doing is I'm using this motion of pulling the dough a little bit, just over, just like this. And then I'm going to place it in our bowl to rise. I'm too close here, but I want you to kind of see this process. And see how it's not sticking to my hands? That's how I know we have the right amount of flour in there. If this dough was sticking to your hands, that would have meant you had too much flour. All right, now that we have a nice little formed ball, we can go ahead and get it right into our bowl. We're going to cover this with a towel and leave it in a warm place. So we're not going to sit it next to the air conditioning vent, but we don't need to put it on the oven. So we're going to find a spot for it where it can just be room temperature, and it can now. All right, an hour has passed. Let's take a look at our dough. Oh my goodness, this is gorgeous, right? Look how full that is in that bowl. So guess what we're going to do now? We're going to punch it down, and then we're going to fold it and work with it a little bit. Not too much, because we don't want to agitate it a lot, because it has developed a lot of air bubbles in it. We just want to encourage some more. So what we're going to do is we're going to just come in with our hands, punch this down. See, it's deflating. Oh, so sad. But now I want to kind of pull it up out of the bowl. And I'm going to work with it just a little bit. What I want to do is I want to fold it. Hold your hand like a fist and let the dough kind of fall over it. And then just fold it. And fold it. And fold it again. Right? See how beautifully soft that dough is looking? That's what we're going for. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back into the bowl. I'm going to recover it. And we're going to let that rise a second time for another hour.
Normally when you've had enough time, what you want to do is cut them out ahead of time, make them into balls. That way it makes it a lot easier to be able to go ahead and form them in a very circular pattern. If you got thick side over here and thin side over here, work on pushing the thick side out rather than trying to bring it all the way across. Makes a difference. You want to have nice uniformity. There we go. It's stretching out very nicely right there. Now, even when you put it on the pan, it's going to shrink because as soon as you pull it up off of here, it's going to start shrinking back just a little bit. So always feel okay with making it just a little bit bigger than you needed. And you'll see. I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. So right now, as you can see, it's a little bit bigger than the pan. The moment I take this up, and I want to get a little bit of flour on the pan itself, so that the moisture doesn't stick to the pan. There we go. See? It's settling in right now. So now it's fitting the pan itself. It's got a good amount of flour underneath, so we should be okay with it not sticking. And now we can put our stuff on top of it. Again, sorry it's not as round as we'd like.